pretty much one or two, maybe the other is
Okay, all right. Apologies for the delay. But Autumn, we are at quorum, and we are ready to get started whenever you are.
Okay, that sounds good. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, good. All right, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order for May 11th of Technical Coordinating Committee. Let's see. Before we go through, is there any way we can do roll call and approve the agenda all at once? And if not,
Sounds good by me.
I know everybody gets tired of having to go through that, and we've got several business items, so we're going to be going through this a lot today, I'm afraid. So real quick, we'll just kind of rearrange everything. Can we do roll call? And is there anybody on here that wants to make a motion to approve the agenda and the consent agenda at the same time?
Vicky Eastland, Lance Garcia, so moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
This is Daniel Sellers, TPD, second.
Okay, great. All right, so if you'll take us through roll call, we'll kind of do all this at once.
Asheville, Lucy Crown.
Hello,
Art,
I'm here.
Jessica Morris.
Aye.
Fillmore Forest, Harry Buckner.
Aye.
Black Mountain, Jessica Trotman.
Aye.
Buncombe County, William High.
Present and approved.
Buncombe Transit, Dylan Casper.
Approved.
TPD, Daniel Sellers.
Good morning and approved.
Fletcher, Eric Rufa.
Aye.
Haywood County, Jody Ferguson.
Present and approve.
Henderson County, Autumn Radcliffe.
Approved.
Apple Country Transit, Jana Van Cooley.
Aye.
Maggie Valley, Caitlin Finkel.
Approved.
Mars Hill, Nathan Bennett.
Aye.
RPO, Vicky Eastland. Aye. DOT Division 13, Hannah Cook. Aye. And Division 14, Steve Williams.
Aye.
Did I miss anyone?
All right.
All right.
Thank you, folks.
Yeah.
And people think government is inefficient.
Okay, so we'll double back and see, is there anyone here or at this time that wants to give public comment? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to our first business item, A, modifications to 5310 programming.
Sure. So this is Scott Adams with the MPO. I just wanted to give you all a quick update on slight change in numbers. Once we've gone through this earlier this year, Tristan and I actually realized that we had a slight error in the numbers. We had overlooked basically the FTA requirement that a minimum of 55% of 5310 funds be allocated to traditional projects. So this is really just a slight revision to the amount that the city of Asheville is receiving, bringing them up from the previous request of, I believe that was 210. Yeah, sorry, I'm just reading through this and I wrote this earlier, so I should have it memorized. But yeah, essentially it's a slight increase to really just come to line with the 55% minimum requirement. And if we scroll down, I've got just a couple of notes there on the increase. So it's going from 210 to 223. They'll receive the fund balance for administrative costs, which will come to 3% of total funds. In previous years, they've received generally about 10% of funds for administrative costs. But at least in this cycle, it's 3%, and the funding levels for all the other entities remain the same at this time. So the recommended action, if we scroll down, is to basically review and approve this change, and this will need to go to the board for final approval. So I'll take any questions or comments on that if there are any.
And unless anyone has any comments or wants to propose another alternative, we do need a motion to recommend this to the board.
This is Jessica. I will make that motion.
Okay, is there a second?
William, I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Okay, once again, take us through roll call.
Asheville, Lucy Crown.
Aye.
Art, Jessica Morris.
Aye.
Fillmore Forest, Terry Buckner.
Aye.
Black Mountain, Jessica Trotman.
Aye.
Buncombe County, William High.
Approved.
Buncombe Transit, Dylan Casper.
Approved.
TPD, Daniel Sellers.
Approved.
Fletcher, Eric Rufa.
Aye.
Haywood County, Jody Ferguson.
Approve.
Henderson County, Autumn Radcliffe.
Approve.
Apple Country Transit, Jana Bianculli.
Aye.
Maggie Valley, Caitlin Finkel.
Approve.
Mars Hill, Nathan Bennett.
Approve.
RPO, Vicky Eastland. Approved. DOT Division 13, Hannah Cook. Aye. And Division 14, Steve Williams.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
All right. Moving right along, business item B, modifications to the JARC programming.
Okay, this is Scott Adams again. This is a change in the allocation amount to the city of Asheville. So just as a very quick reminder, Jobs Access Reverse Commute funding locally has been in previous years a 10% set aside of all 5307 funds. So for this past cycle, that was about $4 million. So the set aside for JARC was just over $400,000. And there was only one application for these funds from the city of Asheville to support the Route 170 bus line, which runs between downtown Asheville and the southern edge of downtown Black Mountain. So this is a revised request from the city to use the remainder of those funds for another JARC function on bus route S3, that stands for South 3, that runs between downtown Asheville and the WNC Ag Center, which also, the route also immediately serves Asheville Regional Airport. So it's a pretty long and significant regional route between those two activity centers. And the city placed this request before Asheville City Council on March 28th. They approved the request from ART, and so the request here today before you all and that will be before the board is to just formalize this request. And I think, if we scroll down just a hair, I think that's got the recommended, or there's a staff recommendation and then the motion. And I'm glad to take any questions or comments on that.
I don't mean to throw any,
John, question?
John Barsani here in the room. I don't mean to throw you a curveball here right
Sure.
now, but both of those locations, both of those routes, access park and ride facilities.
Mm-hmm.
Can any of that money be used to upgrade the park and rides in those areas? And does anyone have any thoughts or concerns?
That's a great question, and I don't know the answer right off the bat, but I can certainly look into that.
If I may, the 5310 can be utilized to enhance access for ADA compliance, so there are efficiencies in accessing, and potentially, if there's a match, to use the phone.
Well, we'll say the 5307.
I'm sorry, 5307.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
I think it's something we can look into, but I think I generally recommend that we look into that for future rounds. The next call for projects will be in the fall.
No, it's a great question.
So that's a good eligibility question.
The nexus between those two, or it's supporting that, so I will look into that. It's a great question.
Okay, just one Park and Rec.
This is Jessica. I will make a motion to approve the recommendation.
Okay, thanks, Jessica. Is there someone who wants to make a second?
William, I'll second.
Thank you, William. All right, take us through roll call.
Asheville, Lucy Crown.
Aye.
Art, Jessica Morris.
Aye.
Fillmore Forest, Terry Buckner.
Aye.
Black Mountain, Jessica Trotman.
Aye.
Buncombe County, William High.
Approved.
Buncombe Transit, Dylan Casper.
Approved.
TPD, Daniel Sellers.
Aye.
Fletcher, Eric Rufa.
Aye.
Haywood County, Jody Ferguson.
Approve.
Henderson County, Autumn Radcliffe.
Approve.
Apple Country Transit, Jana Bianculli.
Aye.
Maggie Valley, Caitlin Finkel.
Approve.
Mars Hill, Nathan Bennett.
Aye.
RPO, Vicky Eastland.
Aye.
DOT Division 13, Hannah Cook. Aye. And Division 14, Steve Williams.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
All right, we'll move on to business item C, which is performance targets.
Okay, so y'all may recall back in, I think it was February, we talked about highway safety performance targets. It's now time for the MPO to adopt performance targets regarding pavement condition, bridge condition, travel time reliability, and freight reliability. Unlike highway safety performance targets, these aren't rolling 5-year averages, but they're 2-year and 4-year targets that aren't based on averages. So primary considerations taken into account when establishing these targets were the state's economic growth and recent VMT trends. Which are expected to continue over the next several years. Projects and funding levels in the STIPs, which are unlikely to significantly change performance in the next 2 to 4 years, and economic and cost uncertainty due to inflation and cost increase over the past several years. So given these factors, these targets maintain a conservative and balanced stance given the unknown. So let's see. If you scroll down one page, a little bit lower, sorry. You can see the highway safety targets that we talked about earlier this year, and then highlighted in the red square are the performance targets we're talking about right now. A few of those towards the end are just applicable to the Charlotte urbanized area. So if you scroll down one more page, you can see the recommended statewide targets given by NCDOT. I won't go through each one, but you can see 2023 target and the 2025 target. So the MPO has 2 options here. We can either establish our own unique targets just for our planning area versus these statewide targets, or we can choose to adopt these statewide targets. That is our staff recommendation due to the fact that establishing our own targets would require a lot of work on our part, a lot of monitoring of statistics on our part. It would probably require us hiring someone new because we don't have the current staff capability to do that. And it wouldn't really influence or increase any influence we have on the internal factors. So it wouldn't increase any funding we have or give us any greater influence to increase road capacity or anything like that. So that is our staff recommendation, but we are considering, or the action is to consider a recommendation of performance targets to the board.
So when I looked at this, I presumed that the road condition improvements were because of improvements made. And then I got to bridge condition. And I was curious why the target is lower. And is it just that we don't have the investments made and our bridges are deteriorating that quickly? Is there any sense on that? You may not have the answer, and I'm fine with us approving that date as measured.
I don't have an answer off the top of my head for that. Someone from DOT might.
I don't expect anybody to have that answer, but I'm curious. William was talking.
So I would just say when you look at the historic trends, I would say that the targets are pretty conservative. I mean, when you think about it, like relative to safety, the safety targets are pretty aggressive. They're saying not only are we going to reverse the trend of increasing crashes and fatalities, well, I mean, it's going to drop significantly. It's an aggressive target that, you know, I think is a reasonable good target, but statistically unlikely to pan out, given current trends. I would say with these, it looks like the opposite. We'll set a target that we are pretty sure we can achieve. Logan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure the state has been achieving PM2 and PM3 targets. So somewhat of just a different philosophy in terms of how they set the targets. But I would point out, I think one of the bullet points that Logan mentioned, I think is kind of an important one to note. Projects and funding levels in the STIP are unlikely to significantly change performance over the next 2 to 4 years. I think that's kind of an important bullet point, both in the fact that I think it speaks to the funding levels and the projects likely to be delivered in the short term, and that in a lot of ways we are not funding the transportation needs. DOT folks tell me if I'm wrong. Pretty sure we've been hearing that for the better part of a decade. But it's also that a lot of the investment decisions that are being made aren't necessarily tied to these performance target decisions. So this is something where, again, where I think it's a good data point. It's a good way to check in on how things are going. But I think there's a lot more work to be done in terms of how we apply these performance targets. Sorry, long answer.
And I'm happy to make a motion to approve the requisition.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. All right, take us through roll call.
Asheville, Lucy Crown.
Aye.
Art, Jessica Morris.
Aye.
Biltmore Forest, Harry Buckner.
Aye.
Black Mountain, Jessica Trotman.
Aye.
Buncombe County, William High.
Approved.
Buncombe Transit, Dylan Casper.
Approved.
TPD, Daniel Sellers.
Approved.
Fletcher, Eric Rufa.
Aye.
Haywood County, Jody Ferguson.
Approve.
Henderson County, Autumn Radcliffe.
Approve.
Apple Country Transit, Jana Bianculli.
Aye.
Maggie Valley, Caitlin Finkel.
Approve.
Mars Hill, Nathan Bennett.
Aye.
RPO, Vicky Eastland.
Approved.
DOT Division 13, Hannah Cook. Aye. And Division 14, Steve Williams.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
All right, we'll move on to business item D, amendments to the 2020-2029 TIP.
Okay, so we got lots and lots of amendments this month. Most of them are locally administered projects. We talked about that and the shifting of funds and scheduling last year, the end of last year, something like that.
I think it was the November prioritization meeting.
Okay, yeah. So that is now gonna be reflected in the TIP pending board approval. So some of those projects are the Acosta Trail, Black Mountain River Walk Greenway, Woodfin Greenway, Bent Creek Greenway, et cetera. Those are some of the notable ones, but there are several. There's also 4 locally administered projects being added to the TIP. That is the Riceville Road Sidewalk Improvement Project, Swannanoa Greenway Project, Phase 2 of the Acosta Trail Project, and the Montreat Texas Road Pedestrian Bridge Project. Beyond locally administered projects, There's a bridge replacement project over 9th Street in Black Mountain, and that construction is being delayed from FY23 to FY24. And there's a Russ Avenue upgrade project that is also delaying construction from FY23 to FY24. And there's a few other miscellaneous ones, but I would say those are probably the most notable. And we are looking for a recommendation of approval.
So I know some of
I'll
these,
make a,
oh, sorry. I was just gonna say some of these have been discussed. I didn't think there was any issue that anyone had, but just wanted to make sure.
I'll make a motion to approve the TIP amendments.
Jessica, I'll second.
I have a question. This is Lucy. I see Swananoa Greenway, the limits are Bleachery Road to Glendale Drive, and that project is fully funded, and we're putting it out to bid in June of this year. So we don't need that funding.
Okay, let's, Lucy, why don't we discuss that offline before the board? Because my understanding is this funding would be supplementing the city's local projects and taking on a few of the parts of that that we're not going to be bond funded. But so I guess if we could talk about that, double check, and we can make any modifications necessary before we take this to the board next week. That would probably be the way to go.
Okay, thanks, Tristan.
Okay, if there's no more questions, we've got a motion and a second. So you want to take us through the roll call?
Asheville, Lucy Crown.
Aye.
Art, Jessica Morris.
Aye.
Biltmore Forest, Terry Buckner. Black Mountain, Jessica Trotman.
Aye.
Buncombe County, William High.
Approved.
Buncombe Transit, Dylan Casper.
Approved.
TPD, Daniel Sellers.
Approved.
Fletcher, Eric Rufa.
Aye.
Haywood County, Jody Ferguson.
Approve.
Henderson County, Autumn Radcliffe.
Approve.
Apple Country Transit, Janavian Cooley.
Aye.
Nagy Valley, Caitlin Finkel.
Approve.
Mars Hill, Nathan Bennett.
Aye.
RTO, Vicky Eastland.
Aye.
DOT Division 13, Hannah Cook.
Aye.
And Division 14, Steve Williams.
Aye.
The ayes have it. And could everyone in the room speak up a little bit? We're getting some audio issues for people online.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. So, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say really quick, I do want to give a thanks to Division 13 staff. Division 13 agreed to take on the project management for the Texas Road Pedestrian Bridge project with the town of Montreat. Division 14, you guys do that all the time, so I've already given you your kudos. But big thanks to Division 13 for agreeing to take that on. I think that'll make for a much more efficient delivery of that project.
All right. So we'll move into our last business item, E, which is the congestion management report.
Sure. And so for this, you do have an attached report. To note, it is with our graphic designer, so it will lose its Microsoft Word beauty, hopefully in the next week or so. So it will look better, to note. But I'll give a quick presentation, just going over some of the findings from the report, and a little bit of background. So First of all, what is a congestion management process, or CMP? That is not an acronym that we deal with all the time, but a quick summary from Federal Highways is a congestion management process is a systematic and regionally accepted approach for managing congestion that provides accurate, up-to-date information on transportation system performance and assesses alternative strategies for congestion management that meet state and local needs. What is before you today is what we call the biennial report that serves to provide that updated information on the state of congestion. For this report, it mainly focuses on data taken from 2021 and looking at some of the sustaining impacts from the pandemic. There's a mix of data sources to note. So some of the data, we actually have more recent data available, and we've got a couple of samples. Some data, we only have some of it to 2020 or even 2019. So 2021 is kind of what we're focusing on, but there's a little bit of straddling. In terms of some of the data sources, one of the big ones that we're using is travel time reliability. That's the probe data that's made available through INRIX here in RIDIS. It provides data basically from cell phones and other sources on how long it takes vehicles and trucks to move from one point to another. And to note, it covers most of our CMP network, but not all of it. Also, we looked at the U.S. Census Bureau's American Community Survey, or ACS. That provides data on commute to work patterns, and to note, it's mostly survey data. And also the longitudinal employer household dynamics, which that's not a catchy brand. I don't know what is. That's available through U.S. Census on the map, and that basically is taking data of where employers are located and where employees are located. There's a lot of caveats to think through that. Telecommuting, to note, looks pretty weird. There's about 100 people in our region that show up as working in San Francisco. Our assumption is they are not commuting, most likely, hopefully. So that's just something to keep in mind. I don't think that undermines the data. It's just something to be cognizant of. So to get into some of our big takeaways from 2021, I think the biggest one is the reduction in overall travel delay. So this is looking at the total number of hours that people spend in traffic in our region. And what we're seeing in the data is there is a big reduction from 2019 to 2020, and that reduction is kind of sustained through 21 and 22. 22 inched up, but not by a whole lot. To note, we did pull the data for the state as well, and basically the same trend was seen. And to look at that a little more closely, we pulled in what's been assigned as the cause of a lot of those delays, and this is for the 5-county region. And the big reduction is recurrent delays, or what we think of as kind of the daily traffic jams. So the number of hours that were observed of people in recurrent congestion dropped dramatically. Where we did see some increases, and this shouldn't be a surprise, is incidents related or incidents in work zone areas and general work zone delays. So, but for the most part, we're seeing delay drop quite a bit. This is data made available from NCDOT. To note is that 2023 hasn't fully happened yet, so that is projected data. But the thing to note is 2021, the VMT, or the amount that people traveled, basically got back to within pre-pandemic averages. So kind of there is this disparity of people are traveling as much, but delay is down. And I think what we're starting to observe is that a lot of it seems to be that people are traveling more at different times of day. They're traveling less during those peak hours. And that goes along with some other trends observed nationally. Another thing to point out that we've observed since we got access to this probe data is that in our region, the PM traffic is considerably more than morning traffic. So just comparing, this is looking at the travel time index, which is the travel time reliability measurement. You can see this is the PM, there's the AM, red is bad. And so we're observing a lot more delay. With planning time index, that's a different reliability metric. Same thing. In the afternoons, our overall network is considerably less reliable. But to note, again, in these slides, we're looking at kind of the comparison of these metrics between 2019 and 2021, and we are seeing reliability, or our overall transportation network is considerably more reliable than it was in 2019. There are less major incidents, less delay overall, and we're seeing that playing out on kind of the smaller level as well. So looking at some of this travel time data, there's kind of three areas that kind of popped out that we may want to look into further. Looking at what we established as kind of what we call a freight corridor, is looking at I-40 going to the west. And that is one of the least reliable freight or interstate corridors in the region without currently funded transportation project. Also, Four Seasons Boulevard, or US 64, that was actually in the report. You can see the top 10 bottlenecks in the region. Four Seasons Boulevard, I believe, was the only one that wasn't a freeway, and that was a top 10 bottleneck. So it's one of the least reliable kind of surface streets in the region from 2021, and it was right up there in 2019 as well. Also, Hendersonville Road between I-40 and Blue Ridge Parkway, that's something that we designate as a destination corridor. And to note there, that is one of the least reliable destination corridors, and that's a type of corridor where multimodal considerations are a little more significant. And that also popped up as having one serious or fatal bicycle and pedestrian crash, and 8 bicycle and pedestrian crashes overall. So 3 areas that are kind of highlighted to look at further. Some other factors that have to do with how we travel. Telecommuting is up. This, just to note, this is a 5-year average from ACS data, so it's most likely a little bit deflated from actual numbers. But based on the ACS data, we're looking at about 25,000 people who work from home, which I think studies have shown is primarily telecommuting at this point, and we've broken that out by county. And all in all, when we look at the changes between 2010 and 2021, in terms of working from home data, we're seeing at least a doubling in every one of our counties, with the exception of Haywood. I think Haywood is up something like 20 or 30%, but it's the only one who hasn't doubled in this category. Some other things from the commute to work data is carpooling. Carpooling is, we've noticed a downwards trend in the number of respondents to this data saying that they carpool to work. It's kind of flattened out a little bit over the last couple of years, but overall, when you look at it over the last decade, the numbers are moving down. Walking to work is roughly flat, and so Again, looking at that over about 10 years, there's some fluctuations, but mostly within the margin of error. That is something to note. And I think something to note with a lot of this data is that because it's survey data, and it does focus on what is your primary mode going to work. It doesn't account for other types of trips, so going to the grocery store, going to school, going wherever. If you're not, for someone like me, I generally bike to daycare and the grocery store. Those types of trips are not what shows up in this data. So this data shouldn't be taken as overall demand for walking and biking. Public transit also generally flat over the last decade. And biking to work, the number of people saying they bike to work in the region has been going down pretty significantly. And to compare to people reporting that they drive alone, the percentage of people saying they drive alone to work has dropped very marginally. Compared to other modes, driving alone is still the predominant way people get to work. A little bit on commute data. This is something we've been talking about for a while. People living and working in the same county is down. It appears to be stabilizing a bit more than it has in the past. But that's something we've seen from the LEHT data over the last 18 years. Using that same data to look at cross-county patterns, the biggest pattern that we see in the cross-county is workers in Henderson employed in Buncombe. There's now more than 12,000 that are reporting that. That is a change of more than 7,000 since 2002. So that is by far our largest increase in cross-county patterns. Buncombe to Henderson is the next largest, but that's largely flat, followed by Haywood employees to Buncombe. That number has also increased considerably. Buncombe to Mecklenburg, that has increased by quite a bit. To note, I think that's another one where I hope people are not driving daily, but might be a reflection of some of the telecommuting patterns. And then just to note quickly, Madison to Buncombe, another large one, and McDowell to Buncombe has rocketed up this list of cross-county patterns. And as I said in prioritization, that goes along with what I'm hearing in my community basketball games. So a lot of people moving to McDowell County and working in Buncombe. And to kind of look at this the other way in terms of employers, in terms of the net gain in jobs, the way to look at this is Buncombe County has gained roughly 32,000 jobs between 2002 and 2019. And the vast majority of that job increase is being filled by employees located outside of Buncombe County. That is something to definitely think about in terms of employee or trying to reach potential employees, employee retention, et cetera. But it's not totally unique. Henderson County, the raw numbers are a little smaller, but again, kind of the outside of Henderson County workers increasing by a lot for Henderson County employees or employers. And Haywood County are roughly the same, but to note, Haywood County, the number of people working and living in Haywood County, a small drop was observed. And the last thing to note is looking at some of the equity considerations. This kind of popped out. This is looking at the change in origin of people who work in the city of Asheville earning less than $3,333 a month. And what we're observing is Basically, those employees are much less likely to be coming from Asheville or even Buncombe County. They are more likely to be coming from outside of Buncombe County. So I think that carries a lot of consideration in terms of regional transportation and how we're providing options to some of these lower income workers to help get them to work. With that, we are looking for acceptance of the biennial report from the board this month, but are there any questions or comments at this point?
Hey, this is Daniel. I noticed something in the charts that I didn't see before, but when you were talking about the decrease in, say, bike to work and carpool to work, there seem to be some county specific patterns. Yeah, just stay that pick any one you want. Okay, so like even though this overall number is down, it looks like the Henderson County number is up. Did you dive into any of the other, say, county specific patterns?
I would say a little bit, but to keep in mind, because this is survey data from the ACS, there is a considerable margin of error. And so especially as you get into some of the modes with lower counts, that's something to keep in mind. So for instance, you know, the public transit to work kind of shows Haywood County disappearing from the graph. It goes down to 0%. I find that hard to believe, but so keeping in mind that even though it says 0%, I think the margin of error for that is something like plus minus 0.5%. So that's something to keep in mind, and that's why I've kind of tried to say is roughly flat. I can add that to the slides. So there is a margin of error to consider. I think from county to county, we didn't see a ton of things that were noteworthy besides the telecommuting trend that I noted with Haywood County. I will say one thing to note is that a lot of these trends were very similar across counties, and we also pulled in data for our two larger municipalities, Asheville and Hendersonville, and a lot of the same trends were observed there as well, showing biking going down, walking in transit mostly flat, and carpooling going down.
Well, as I'm sure Vicky will drum into my head, biking is not down in Transylvania County.
No, and again, that's kind of the caveat to think about with this data, is that commute to work.
Yeah,
consideration.
I was getting ready to say that, Daniel. You are correct. There's still significant cycling happening in Transylvania, but I think this is just from the ACS, and it's your commute to work, not your other
Recreational.
modes. Recreational and other.
And this is your primary mode. So I work from home 2 days a week, but that wouldn't be captured here.
Correct.
Okay, unless there's any other questions or discussion, we are looking for a motion to recommend this to the MPO board.
Motion to recommend this to the MPO board. William High.
Thank
I'll
you.
second.
Thank you. Okay, let's go through roll call. Last time.
Asheville, Lucy Crown.
Aye.
Art, Jessica Morris.
Aye.
Fillmore Forest, Harry Buckner.
Aye.
Black Mountain, Jessica Trotman.
Aye.
Buncombe County, William High.
Approved.
Buncombe Transit, Dylan Casper.
Approved.
TPD, Daniel Sellers.
Approved.
Fletcher, Eric Rufa.
Aye.
Haywood County, Jody Ferguson.
Approve.
Henderson County, Autumn Radcliffe.
Approve.
Apple Country Transit, Genevieve Cooley.
Aye.
Maggie Valley, Caitlin Finkel.
Approve.
Mars Hill, Nathan Bennett.
Aye.
RPO, Vicky Eastland.
Aye.
DOT Division 13, Hannah Cook.
Aye.
And Division 14, Steve Williams.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
All right, so we have two informational items. The first one is the draft 24-2033 tip.
Yeah, so just really quick, the phrasing on this is kind of funny. The final draft, not to be confused with the initial draft or the revised draft, of the 2024 through 2033 tip, that is available on our website. That is something that includes, the swaps that were agreed to by the MPO board and NCDOT. So that was the swap to put in I-26 US 64 interchange and swap out Canoga Road, as well as splitting the Sweeten Creek widening project at Mills Gap Road. It also has some other revisions that I understand are based on kind of continued cost estimation and budgeting by the department. So just a few projects to highlight that have had some changes. The Liberty Road interchange, that was moved, the initial construction date was moved from 2025 to 2026. The Sardis and Sand Hill Road project was moved from 2028 to 2031, a 3-year delay. And to note, the project swaps and splitting are reflected as well. Again, information on all of the projects is available on the MPO website. We put it in a spreadsheet as well as PDF. Am I correct on that? I'm correct. Great. So you can access the information for all of that. So the next steps on this is the Board of Transportation plans to approve the draft step at its June meeting, and the MPO plans to consider adoption at its August meeting, with kind of a drop dead date of September 30th for all MPOs to approve their TIPs. So at this point, this is information only, but these are some significant changes to some of the projects, and the release of the final draft. So any questions? This is just informational for this month.
Okay, hearing no questions, we'll move on to our second informational item, which is the Regional Trails Forum.
So Logan and I have been chipping away at the Regional Trail Forum. We have booked Smoky Park Supper Club for an August 31st event. The event will start at 9 a.m. and end at noon with an optional Greenway walk on the Wilma Dykeman afterwards. The theme for the event will be networking greenways. There's going to be an elected official coffee hour from 8 to 9 before the official event. The topics that we're going to be covering at the event will potentially include equity, health, and wellness, because that is the year of the trail theme for August, economic impacts of greenways, and networking best practices. Brett Baranak is from the Carolina Thread Trail, is the official keynote speaker. We got him this week. So he will be here in person to talk about the Carolina Thread Trail. We will be getting the steering committee back together in the next few weeks. The doodle will be live later today. If you would like to be a part of that group, please send me a message, and we'll get you on that email list. And we plan on having sessions geared towards staff and interested citizens. So everyone mark your calendar.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you. Is there any questions or comments anyone wants to make on this? Okay. So we'll move into our update portion. So we'll start with Division 13.
Yeah, so I'll skip project development. I think Tristan covered what I was gonna cover with the changes in the final draft step. I will say, the only other comment is when you're reviewing the full final draft step document, again, I say it every time, but those projects that say not funded will be reevaluated in P7, starting in the summer. But for construction, we have a lot of resurfacing and bridge projects in the MPO, but I'm gonna cover just the three kind of big ones. I-4700, so I-26 from Airport Road to I-40. Work continues on the concrete pavement for the westbound lanes between Airport Road and the Parkway Bridge. The contractor will also continue grading and placing concrete pavement from the French Broad River Bridge north towards Brevard Road. Work has also started on the second half of the French Broad River Bridge, and they're going to hopefully finish that bridge completely by the end of this calendar year. And they are also doing a lot of work on sound wall still, so you can observe that as you drive through the area. That work is going to continue also for the next several months. The Hendersonville Road Overlook Road intersection, work has resumed there. It had kind of stalled through the winter, but they have installed the curb and gutter and started placing the final pavement out there. It's been a bit of a congestion area if you drive through after 7 p.m., but usually by 9 or 9:30 it's cleared out. So they're going to work this next month constructing the sidewalk that they're adding out there and paving the remainder of the project, and then also installing a new traffic signal. So hopefully that intersection project will be done by the end of June. And then just want to touch on Merriman Avenue. The contractor has been paving out there. They're also continuing to replace the curb ramps. I think they've resumed paving, they completed paving from Beaver Lake to I-240 recently. They are scheduled to continue completing the remaining pavement from I-240 to Biltmore Ave by the end of June. So they're still not done paving out there. They're going a little bit further south. The permanent pavement markings have been placed on the road diet section, except there's a few more bike symbols that need to be installed. And then they'll start placing the permanent pavement markings on the new section they just paved in the next week or two. So that's the Merriman Avenue update. Nothing else for me unless there's questions.
Hannah, are there any updates on the HE0001?
I'm sure there are plenty, but none that I'm in the loop or qualified to get, but I can get one and send it to you if you want to send it out to the board after, unless Brendan got something.
We're at 25% plans on that. They've applied for the permitting, which should be, hopefully if all goes well, in August. There's some stream monitoring we've committed to. I can't hear. Some stream monitoring that we've committed to, so we'll hopefully have access to get in there. We don't have the right-of-way yet from Biltmore Farms, but that's in the works. Moving forward, there were some issues with a couple of the ramps B and D, meeting design standards, and so those are being resolved right now. That's why we're still at 25% plans.
Okay. Great. That's something I've gotten a few questions on.
Sure.
And Lucy, you've got your hand slightly raised.
Hi, yeah, Brendan, I'm wondering if you could give an update on the Amboy Road Bridge.
It'll let in June. So provided we get a qualified bid, you'll see work start by the summer, I suppose, depending on which contractor it is. And then I think hey, what?
I think she said great.
Okay, yeah, and just a reminder that for a period during that construction, the bridge will be down to one lane with a temporary signal, and we'll have hopefully lots of publicity about that, where, when, and where to go otherwise if you need to avoid it.
Thanks, Brendan.
Okay. If there's no questions, we still need to do Division 14, correct?
Sure. Okay, let's start with project development. First of all, before I do that, personnel changes in Division 14, most of you probably know. Troy Wilson, who was our corridor development engineer, has accepted the District 1 engineer position in Division 14, and that covers Polk, Transylvania, and Henderson County. So y'all still be seeing a lot of Troy. Congratulations to that on that promotion, Troy. And now on to project development. It's the same project you've been seeing for quite some time. Hopefully, when the board adopts this in June, we'll be able to clean it up and get rid of those extra columns. Tristan, you should not underestimate DOT's ability to come out with a revised final draft still. But so these are the dates for now. I think we covered last meeting that U5839, which is Russ Avenue in Haywood County. That let date did move out just 2 months. It was May of this year, and now it's July. Otherwise, there are no changes. Construction updates will start with I-26. Division 14 is kind of dull compared to what's going on in Division 13. Traffic shifts at the rest areas, and Troy, correct me if I'm wrong here, but the traffic shifted to the eastbound lanes, and because of that, the westbound rest area is closed. I think it still is, right? I believe so. Yeah, hopefully it'll be open soon. Okay. So, yeah, so that's the main, just be looking out for traffic shifts as they shift from one eastbound to westbound. Haywood County, beware of resurfacing that's cranking up again. That's mostly the final surface course on I-40. It was the resurfacing that was started last year. The bridges on I-40 are still ongoing. The couple there near where 276 comes out, Jonathan Creek area. Walnut Main project is progressing as it should there in Haywood County. Otherwise, just bridges and intersection realignments there. Henderson County, again, I-26 on the Green River Bridge. There's traffic in both directions still as they complete the center portion of that bridge, and then they'll shift traffic, but the shoulders are closed there, so be aware. That I-26 ramp project, US 25 South, is almost complete. And Highland Lake Road is finally started, barely. Yeah, that took a while to get going. So. Any questions? All right, great, thanks.
Thanks, Steve.
All right, so updates from I can't even talk today. Sorry, Transportation Planning Branch.
That's all right. That's all right. Yeah, so the big news, of course, this past month was, of course, that the planning organizations held their annual conference. It was a record-setting attendance. You know, every year it's the same group of MPO, RPO division and consultants, but I encourage people, you know, like the staff and county and city planning staff to attend. I thought there were a lot of good presentations, and when the slides come out, I'm going to try to distill some of them to bring to you. One of the more interesting ones I thought was a presentation from Eric Lamb from Raleigh on the Hillsborough Road Diet, which is one of the first ones, oldest ones in the state, and they've been able to do 5-year and 10-year follow-up studies. So big wealth of information there. In other news, we've had some success lately with streetlight data. Somebody in my office, we now have a license for it, and we're subscribing to that data. So if you or any of your local communities have an interest in us preparing a report for you and using that data for your benefit, please let me know. We've used it to compare A to T data and kind of validate that or give us some seasonal information. And also Transylvania County, it was used for some like tourism seasonal analysis. But we've started using it on lots of studies. It was used for Merriman Road. It was used for I-2513. This is a good data set. And then I guess in other data set news, Tristan and I are meeting next week with a data source that we're hoping to get short-term rental data. And that will be a very interesting thing to explore. I think it really exploded on the scene the last few years, and we're, as an industry, are still trying to figure out how to deal with it. But we'll keep you updated on if the data sharing agreements allow us to do much work for y'all also. But that's kind of what we have in the hopper.
Yeah, and just to note on that, thank you, Daniel, for helping with that. I think something we've noted is that there's, was it 9,800, in excess of 9,800 short-term rentals in the 5-county region, and that's something that our travel demand model doesn't currently account for. So that's something we're trying to get data to make our model a little bit more accurate in that regard. For whatever reason, this provider, the data looks excellent, but to get 5-county data, the MPO would need to do a 12-month subscription, and it would cost more than the statewide data. So, Daniel, thank you for helping us get in touch with the modeling group, and hopefully they'll be interested in getting their own subscription that we can use.
Okay, thank you, Daniel. So are there any updates from Federal Highways or FTA?
No updates today from Federal Highway, unless there are any questions. Thank you.
Okay, so Tristan, updates for subcommittee work groups, et cetera, et cetera.
So I won't go through each subcommittee. Just to note, we've lengthened those reports to provide a little more detail in case you are interested. But a lot of our subcommittees are continuing to work. I think one of the big things to note is the 5307 subrecipients work group has been looking at some updates to the formula and updated allocations for urban transit funding. And as Daniel noted, the North Carolina Association of MPOs conference was in April in Greenville. It was a good conference, and I totally agree with Daniel. The Hillsborough Street presentation was incredible. I am admittedly someone who gets tired at conferences about 2 sessions in. But my jaw was on the floor with that presentation. Just a lot of great data. Yeah, that's something for folks to look at. Also to note there, after some peer pressuring, we agreed to host the conference of MPOs in 2026. So a couple of people in the office have calendar invites.
They have not responded.
That not everyone's responded to. They haven't accepted quite yet. But we will plan to start planning that conference probably in later 2024 and 2025. The next few conferences, the next one I believe is in New Bern in 2024. And New Bern is a fantastic place, if anyone's interested. And then Fayetteville in 2025. I won't do it.
But like,
it's
a big list.
It's a big list.
But I mean, Charlotte.
Charlotte 2019. I think we should do Charlotte every year, quite frankly. It's central for everyone, but whatever.
Charlotte was in 19.
What I've been told is people would prefer us to just go back and forth between Wilmington and Asheville. And we have asked that we not do that.
When's the last one in Asheville?
Every 12 years, every 12 years is, or 13 years is. My first year at Land of Sky, I was MPO staff and we hosted the conference. It was grueling. Oh, okay.
Yeah, grueling is the first theme of the conference being considered. Please mark your calendars for 2026. A few legislative updates. I cannot go through all of them. My God, has the General Assembly been busy. But a few that kind of stuck out. House Bill 787 is an act to codify the existing limits of DOT right-of-way and easements, which we were just talking about right-of-way data before this meeting. House Bill 811, that is an act to abolish contributory negligence. So that's kind of the, I'll probably butcher this, but the legal aspect that if you are just a little bit at fault in a crash, then fault has to be considered legally shared in some of those crashes. It's something that I think a lot of activists have taken issue with. House Bill 656, that's an act to allow transit authorities to operate 10 miles outside of its prescribed jurisdiction. House Bill 643 is an act to establish a passenger rail fund. That is, I think, something that's getting a lot of discussion considering all of the passenger rail funding that's been made available at the federal level. And how the state can provide match for some of those potential grants, I think is kind of an open question. House Bill 609, allowing electronic speed monitoring in school zones. House Bill 582 is the Transportation for the Future Act. It proposes a number of revisions to the Strategic Transportation Investments Act, i.e. how North Carolina distributes its transportation funding in fixed projects. The House Bill 663, that is a bill that to consider replacing gas tax with a flat tax based on vehicle weight and fuel efficiency. So to note, all of those are in committee. House Bill 717 is a bill to study MPOs. I think something to note there is that the original version of this bill evidently had a requirement that all MPOs send out first-class mail when adopting TIP amendments or TIPs. So sending out first-class mail to all potentially impacted property owners from projects or planned projects. Our friends in Raleigh did a preliminary look, and it would have cost them several $1 million to adopt the next TIP if that were to go through. But that has been, again, scaled down to study MPOs. Also, Senate Bill 549, that is an act that amends rules for local governments considering development moratoriums related to transportation projects. So those are a few that stuck out. There are many, many, many more. There's, I think, one I forgot to mention that would require signage be installed with transportation projects that note the estimated completion date and cost of the project. Lots of bills out in the General Assembly right now. I think at the federal level, there continue to be a lot of notices of funding opportunities. You all should have been receiving emails. There's currently a wildlife crossing grant that is out. The Protect grant is out for consideration. That's transportation resiliency. And I can't remember the EV corridor discretionary grant funding. That is out. It's my understanding NCDOT is pursuing a grant application along the 2374 corridor further to the west of our region. That is all the updates that I have for today. Any questions?
One comment I'd have for you is that there was just a news article that came out that there's federal legislation called Homes for People, Not Cars Act of 2023, where they're going to try and do some federal zoning to put all the parking requirements in the hands of the developers. This seems to be a violation of the 10th Amendment because anything that's not spelled out in the Constitution as being a federal responsibility is thereby a state opportunity. But that never stopped it.
Yeah. We'll see where it goes. All right, that's all the updates we got.
All right, is there any announcements, updates, topics for the next meeting? All right, last call for public comment.
Caitlin has her hand up.
Okay.
Sorry, just trying to close my chat out.
I do that all the time.
Sorry, one comment from Jody. Sorry, Jody, I just noticed this. It's important to note that the cross-county commute patterns do not represent what we expect to happen when the Canton paper mill employees will be looking for jobs in the Asheville-Hendersonville area. So yeah, Jody, I totally agree. I think we'll probably see an increase in the shift of those trends.
Okay.
Thank you, Tristan.
I'm sorry. All right, did anyone else have any comments? All right, hearing none, we are adjourned. Hope everyone has a good day.